Every clean room has challenges. Where do you turn for answers? Real questions from real professionals. Expert insights you can trust. All answered inside the clean room. Presented by Contec Cleanroom.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Inside the Cleanroom. I'm here with Patricia Ignazi with our Technical Services Group, and we're excited to be back today talking again about the culture of clean. How do you build a culture of clean? But we've talked about that in our last episode. Today I wanted to kind of continue that conversation, but maybe build it a little bit more around regulations and how all these industry regulations involved in clean rooms and pharmaceutical manufacturing and how that really impacts what we do on a day-to-day basis. So to start out, let's talk about how do we stay up to date with these regulations and how do we do that without leaving operators behind?
Yeah, so one of the, I guess, more recent regulations that got updated, or guidance documents that got updated, was Annex 1, one that is near and dear to my heart. Felt like Christmas morning when they finally released that revision. But the first thing to do to really stay up to date is essentially doing a gap assessment to look at where you are right now compared to what that new regulation or guidance is expecting, and evaluating, what you might need to do to get there. But to not leave your operators behind is to involve them in that gap assessment. And not only does that kind of help to drive that engagement and empowerment of your operators, but truly your operators are going to be the ones to know what gaps there really are, because a gap on paper is different than kind of the reality of the gaps that are actually happening in the cleanroom operations.
Yes, absolutely. The experts doing the work can really give you valuable feedback as you're working through that, for sure. So once you identify these gaps, are we rewriting the SOP entirely, or what are we doing once we find out those gaps?
So, hopefully it's not a complete red line, like the whole thing is just torn apart. Usually it's just, hopefully some minor revisions, because usually with these guidance and regulations, you're not just blindsided by the update. You kind of get some previews into the proposed revisions. But, yes, you're revising your SOPs. Again, whether it's a complete overhaul or just some minor tweaks. Again, we're talking about culture and how to keep those operators engaged. And something that I used to do was actually, before a document went and was fully registered and ready to go live, I actually gave it to some of, again, the cleanroom operators and said, hey, need you to read through this. I need to know what you are interpreting from this. Because, of course, as an SOP or work instruction author, I know exactly what it is that I'm trying to get across. But that's only effective if the end user is interpreting it the same way. So yes, rewrite your SOPs as needed, whether it's to maintain compliance with changing regulations or if it's just for general improvements, but involve the operators so, again, they know what's coming and they read it in the way that you're intending it.
Okay, so we've identified the gaps. We've looked at our SOP to see kind of what needs to be tweaked or rewritten a little bit. But once that's happened, what's next? Then what do we do?
So training. And more than just read and understood. I know it's really tempting. You put in all this effort to do the gap assessment. You rewrite your SOP. You've got endless change controls to do so. It's super easy to push out a new revision of an SOP and have your operators read it and they sign off that they've read it. And if you're just checking the box for compliance, you might consider that training. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of programs might fall short because they're feeling stressed on time and they've got so much that's changing. But you really do need to spend the time to train your operators, and you need to train them effectively. Just training them to go through the motions, again, you can check that compliance checkbox, but you are not truly educating your operators. You're not building true awareness with them. So it's important to train them correctly.
This is all great information. Thank you so much for continuing to help us, challenge our thinking around a culture of clean and really empowering operators and facilities to really take ownership of that at their facility. So that's it for this episode of Inside the Clean Room. We hope you enjoyed this episode and we can take this information back inside your clean room. Hi everyone and welcome. Thanks for joining us today for Train to Retain, Decreasing Turnover in Cleanroom Operators. We're so glad you're here. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. We hear from you. Please enter your questions in the chat. We are going to have an office hours session next week. We're going to be answering as many questions as we can, so please keep them coming as you think about them. Now, fair warning, this webinar is not your typical webinar. This webinar is going to be much more fast moving, more visuals, and it's designed to be way more engaging than a read and understood training. Our host today is Patricia Ignazi, and she'll be walking us through how training can move beyond a check the box type of training, and it can really empower your team to build awareness and a true culture of clean within your facility. We're also going to hear from David Talmadge from PDA, and he's going to be focusing on practical tips for effective training that strong programs are doing differently in the industry now. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to jump right into it. Please welcome Patricia Ignazi.
Welcome to Mostly Clean News. I'm Patricia Ignazi. We have so much to talk about today. A perfectly crafted contamination control strategy won't guarantee contamination control. Compliance is not a substitute for culture. Training doesn't inherently equate to education and awareness. And make sure you stick around for my one-on-one with David Talmadge from PDA. We'll be talking about tips for effective training and what he's seeing at sites that have training down to a science. Let's get right into it. The industry is shocked to hear that the countless hours they spent on writing SOPs and policies and everyone's favorite buzzword, the contamination control strategy, isn't enough to keep contamination at bay. Really? Doesn't contamination understand how much time and effort goes into these? I mean, I'm kidding, of course. We all know that the documents themselves don't just create a protective barrier around the clean room. You actually need people to execute the things that these documents tell them to. I mean, you develop a contamination control program with these meaningful, holistic strategies, and it's just so well crafted that when it comes down to execution, you've considered it all. You have all these fail-safes built in, essentially a network of controls to maintain your clean room and your process in a state of control. I think we've all seen it, the House of Contamination Control. I mean, it's really such a beautiful thing. This actually reminds me of a time that we gave our basement a little bit of a facelift to turn it into kind of like this playroom, family room. And similar to your contamination control strategy, I did all of this planning and evaluation and discussing, like that kind of discussion where I would like say to my husband, what color do you like best? But I already knew which one I was going to pick. And I created this vision. And of course, it wasn't just limited to the on-the-surface design for the renovation. I had it planned all the way down to the storage bins that would be used to keep all of my kids' toys organized. I literally picked out these bins that have lids that are so easy for my kids to take off and put back on, so they could very easily put things away when they were done playing. And of course, I was sharing this all along with my kids to get them excited. And here it is, the finished product. Not bad for a house that was built in the 1950s. It's just this super calming and relaxing and just really like cozy space. I love it when a plan comes together. And then there's this. This is my reality. Turns out that kids are inclined to play in a playroom, and it's not fun to put toys away. why am I sharing this with you? Why am I letting you into my life and into my cluttered house? Because we need to remember that even the best planned house of contamination control can be trashed by its inhabitants. It's what makes a house a home, right? The people. Each layer of control represented in the house of contamination control relies on people to execute them. And to keep the house, clean and organized, you have to train your personnel, and you need to set an expectation of a culture of clean. You're probably asking yourself, what does culture have to do with contamination control? Can't we just tell our operators what to do and then they do it? I mean, sure, just like I can tell my kids to do something, and when they don't want to and they're all, but why do I have to rinse off the dishes and put them in the dishwasher? And I'm all, because I said so. That totally works, and it works every single time, and I never, ever, ever find dirty dishes in the sink with dried food on them that essentially requires an archaeological excavation to remove. Sorry, where was I? Right. Why do we need a culture of clean to support our contamination control programs? Because you can't rely on compliance alone. You can't just keep saying, because the SOP says so. Compliance is necessary. It sets the framework and establishes control. Compliance is following the rules, the regulations, your policies and procedures. But to create long-term success and stability of your program, you need to create and embrace a culture of clean. Your culture creates motivation and commitment. It creates a sense of engagement and ownership, and it guides behaviors and decision-making even in the absence of strict rules. I hate to break it to you, but culture takes time. I wish there was a quick fix I could tell you about, something like develop a culture of clean in 30 minutes or less. But I'll do you the next best thing. I'll tell you how a contamination control culture starts. A culture committed to contamination control, where operators are motivated to do the right thing even when no one is watching, it starts with awareness. And I don't mean just telling your operators what to do, but why they're doing it. If we relied only on compliance and we just had our operators execute their task based on the procedures, we might end up with this. I'm sure that this operator walked into the clean room in a slow and deliberate manner, but the SOP didn't say anything about not spinning in your chair when the process is taking too long and you're getting a little bit bored. And kudos to these operators. They kept the assisting operator from reaching into the grade A area. But what they neglected to do was keep the grade A operator in the grade A area. So I think we can all agree that read and understood, while it may check the compliance checkbox, it doesn't result in in-depth operator education. And certainly it doesn't build a culture of awareness and accountability. And why don't we just get this out of the way? Training someone to go through the motions doesn't mean that they fully comprehend what they are doing and why they're doing it. And it certainly doesn't create long-term success for operators or for the programs they're supporting. I bet you're saying, well, then what can I do to improve my contamination control program? And I am so glad that you asked. You need to start by understanding the way that people learn. There's a lot of different learning theories out there, but today we're going to discuss the ones that might be most pertinent to cleanroom operations. We're going to start with behaviorism. This is where your learner is conditioned based on stimuli or experiences. This learning theory includes repetition to build mastery. And it often includes feedback, such as recognition or rewards. Oh, that's that's weird. I just got like real hungry. Can I get a snack in here? Yeah, maybe like some cheese. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, behaviorism. What does that look like in the clean room? Things like your gowning qualifications or even aseptic operator qualifications, these are examples of behaviorism. Your operators are required to demonstrate their proficiency with direct feedback, sometimes by way of personnel sampling, to show that they've executed the tasks appropriately. But let's face it, not every role, not every operator goes through something like an APS. So how can you leverage behaviorism in your contamination control program to help create awareness for all of your operators and not just your aseptic manufacturing team? Generally speaking, you can't see the contamination we're concerned with in the clean room. And that makes it hard to understand the impact of poor behavior or execution. So you can create hands-on demonstrations that allow your operators to see why their technique matters, allowing them to have that immediate feedback when their execution doesn't achieve the intended outcome. So let's take it over to our training clean room to Renee Morley, and we're gonna see some behaviorism examples in action.
Have you ever done a job at work and just thought, nailed it? Well, we're gonna see that today with Harry. He's about to demonstrate that level of confidence.
Heard that.
Hey Harry, what you doing back here today?
Today we are transferring materials into the clean room and disinfecting those materials prior to entry into the clean room.
That sounds SOP approved.
I aim to please auditors I've never met.
Well, let's see what you got. Notice the technique, focus, quiet confidence of a person that can do no wrong.
Listen, this ain't my first rodeo.
All right, Harry, let's take a break and let's check your effectiveness on this. Let's turn the lights off.
What?
Oh,
I wiped
man.
all of that.
Well, there is a way to do it so that you do cover all of the surfaces. You need to use overlapping strokes, full coverage to provide full coverage for the disinfectant or the sanitizing solution that's on the material. You need to be methodical with it, so take your time and to make sure that you get every nook and cranny throughout the whole process. So let's try this again.
Okay.
All right, so when you're wiping, overlapping strokes, you know how when you're cutting the grass, how you make sure that you're overlapping so you don't have extra grass sticking out?
Okay,
All right.
got it.
And make sure that you take time to get all the crevices and the nooks and crannies. And make sure you don't forget that contact time.
All right, done.
All right, let's turn the lights back off. Oh, you did a much better job this time.
I still missed a bunch though.
Yeah, but you know where you missed. You know where to focus on now. Let's try it one more time and see where it goes.
Okay, you got this, Harry.
Third time's the charm, right?
That's right.
Very good. Very good. You're remembering where you missed that time, last time. How's that feel?
It feels much better.
All right. Let's try one more time. Let's see how it worked out for you.
Yes.
Much better. You got all the sections that you missed last time. What was different this time?
Well, I think having the visual of the products themselves afterward is very helpful, plus the live feedback from you during the process really helped me pick up on the techniques to use and help me improve overall.
That's great. The task didn't change. Harry's awareness did, and the behavior followed.
I think I'm ready to start now.
Thanks, Renee. I love the use of fluorescence to provide that immediate feedback on a technique that would otherwise be invisible. But maybe let's work with Harry a little on that hand hygiene before we set him loose in the clean room. The next learning theory we'll explore was actually developed in opposition to behaviorism. And look, I am not here to start any psychologist fights, so I'll simply say that each theory has its merits. And I think that given the right application, they are both relevant to cleanroom training. Rather than focusing on observable behaviors, cognitivism looks at how learners acquire and maintain knowledge. And it doesn't view learners simply as information repositories. It looks at the mental process for processing, storing, and recalling information. People organize knowledge into schemas or units based on relevance and their experiences. I mean, think about packing for a move. You don't just take a bunch of random items and toss them in a box together. You group similar items together so that when it's time to unpack and access all of those things, you can easily find them. To leverage cognitivism, help your operators pack their boxes by creating a training curriculum that groups similar concepts together. And help them label those boxes by using visuals or mnemonics so that they can easily recall key concepts. You can use something like disinfection time to help operators remember the important techniques during disinfection. What's key here? Working top to bottom, in one direction, making your strokes overlap, and ensuring contact time. Another way to put cognitivism into practice is by connecting new information with previous knowledge. For example, if you started all of your operators off with some micro one-on-one, you could do a call back during gowning training to help them associate microbial contamination with poor gowning and hygiene. Sometimes it's hard for operators to connect why their actions outside of the cleanroom matter and why hand washing is such a critical first step to gowning, but by helping them actually see the contamination present on items that they're handling before heading into the cleanroom, it really helps drive home that concept. And when it comes to all of the gowning that needs to be warm, sometimes it can feel a little excessive. Wearing that face mask is important because look at what it helps keep trapped inside and out of the cleanroom environment. And it's not enough to just wear all of those gowning components. It's important to don them correctly. If your gloves aren't pulled up all the way over your sleeves, that may leave your wrist exposed. Or if your bouffant or hood isn't covering all of your hair, then contaminants can still find their way out. And once you're gowned up, you're still not free to do just whatever you want. If I've got an itch or my safety glasses are falling down and I adjust them, what has just been transferred to my gloves? And these are real examples that I've used when training operators before. And let me let you in on a little secret. These samples were actually all taken from me. Ugh. People are so gross. Okay, guys, seriously, I'm starving here. Can I please get some snacks? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that a dirty plate? Are you
No,
expecting...
I just pulled it out of the dishwasher. It just went through the sanitization cycle.
Seriously, like you want me to eat off of that? That's last night's spaghetti still.
Yeah, well,
on...
it adds a little flavor.
Really?
Fine.
Can you guys believe that? I mean, I'm not crazy, right? You wouldn't eat off of that plate. I don't care if it's been sanitized. That's like walking into your clean room to see an operator just applying a sporicide to a dirty work surface and they're all, it's fine, it'll be sterile dirt now. Oh, thank you.
Okay, I got it this time.
That's soap.
Yeah, you know it's clean. There's literally still soap on it.
No, but like, I get it, there's not food on there, but you want me to eat soap now? Like, I feel like that's not really gonna complement the cheese.
But it's clean.
No, can you try again, please?
Okay, I think I got it.
All right. I mean, maybe if he would just stay on top of the dishes, the residue wouldn't build up on there. This is seriously like incorporating routine cleaning or residue removal in your cleaning and disinfection program so you can get ahead of built up and dried up residue. I mean, seriously, I appreciate all the effort, but this just makes no sense to me. Obviously, in your clean room, it's not enough to just throw a detergent on your residue to remove it. You're trading one problem for another and just leaving detergent residue on all the surfaces now. I just can't with this.
All right, no soap, no spaghetti.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Finally, it is time to eat.
I see what you did there.
What?
You just did a demo.
Of what, cognitivism?
Yeah, you connected clean room concepts to a real life situation to make it more relatable. Because when adults connect new ideas to real life examples, they tend to remember the knowledge better.
Right, no, that was definitely what I was going for there.
Can I have some cheese too?
Oh, yeah, here, take that. Wow, who knew I'd be an expert in demonstrating cognitivism? Coming up in just a minute, we will have a real expert. He's the VP of Education for PDA, David Talmadge. Meanwhile, I found some more cheese.
All right, guys, I'm back. Quick interruption for an important announcement. Office hours are coming. If your question doesn't get answered today, don't worry. We're not going to stamp it read and understood and move on. Join us 1 week from today for a live office hours session where we'll answer the leftover questions, dig into real scenarios, and share what's working at other sites. Details are on the screen. Bring your questions. We'll bring the answers. Let's get back to it.
Can I take a minute here? We just spent, 20, 30 minutes together for a webinar focused on training and education of operators. In that time, what did you remember? What really stuck with you? Was it the definitions that flashed on the screen of behaviorism and cognitivism? Maybe it's when I was talking about the importance of building a culture of clean? Or was it maybe the entertaining stuff, the relatable stuff? Was it when I secretly used cognitivism on you and helped you draw a connection between doing dishes at home and cleaning in the clean room? When did that proverbial light bulb go off that your training program could maybe use a little refresh to go from those stale PowerPoint presentations to something a little more engaging? You might be feeling just a little bit overwhelmed. And I get that. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into a training program, and there's a lot of time and effort that would go into it to revamp it, to incorporate some new training modalities. And I've been there. But you gotta start by starting. So let's start together. And to help us, let's actually get some sage advice from my guest today. He has been the VP of the Training and Research Institute of the Parenteral Drug Association for the past 10 years. He is responsible for the development and delivery of PDA's training courses and the operation of the Training and Research Institute's clean room and laboratories globally. Please help me welcome to the show, David Talmadge.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, David, I am so excited that you're joining us today. I mean, seriously, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing?
It's good. I'm glad that we finally got some snow here on the East Coast. So I'm excited about that and looking forward to now it all melting. So can't wait for that to happen either now.
Yeah,
so.
I will send you my snow from Ohio anytime. So, Dave, let's get into it. With PDA holding over 150 training courses globally each year, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say that you've probably seen your fair share of training. How would you describe effective training to our audience? And what advice would you give to those that aren't really sure where to start with their training programs?
You know, it's a great question from a perspective of why are we training in the first place, and what is the intent behind it. And a lot of people will look at the regulations, and it says, you know, you have to have the training, education, and experience, and they do it from a compliance check the box standpoint that says, hey, we have now done this. And from a training perspective and a training professional, we look at it from a perspective of what value did that add to the organization. And this is one of the challenges that our industry faces in terms of what are we trying to get out of training, what's its importance with what we're doing, and the goal being a skill or a knowledge that people can apply on the job, and particularly in what we do in a day in and day out is patient safety. How do we do what we do for the patients that we supply our medicines to? And I think looking at it beyond the check the box exercise of compliance, saying, yep, I've done this, it's more of how am I looking at this from an investment in terms of prevention of things that are going to potentially happen down the road. And having that knowledge and skill set is really an investment in the organization, and that's what's important. So for effective training, you have to start at the basic of why are you doing training in the first place? If you're doing read and understand training as a check the box, and personal opinion on that is it is a check the box exercise. It doesn't, you know, when I read a 90-page SOP, does that really add value to my learning other than I know an SOP exists? When does it actually, you know, matter is in terms of my execution and how I'm able to do that. And so effective training looks beyond the compliance check the box. It looks at what knowledge do I need to have? What skills do I need to have? What on-the-job training do I need to have? With a goal of making sure that I am equipped to perform my job day in and day out the same way, because we're going to have deviations, we're going to have investigations. And the last thing we want to have to deal with in all that is, did you know what you were doing? And we've always run into that. So that's the challenge that we have.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I love, and please note the heavy sarcasm here, is when you get a new operator and they've got to get through not just one 90-page SOP, but like the whole slew of SOPs, right? And so they're spending like their first week or 2 or 3 or 4 just reading SOPs. And for those organizations that rely on that checkbox training, right? And you've just read how many 90-page SOPs and you're supposed to go get on the clean room floor and do an effective job. I mean, come on, what's more perfect training than that?
Well, and I think that's the thing is that you want to get people on the floor doing their job as fast as possible. And you get that with a check the box exercise. What you don't get is a knowledgeable person that can maybe prevent something from happening down the road. And that's that investment. I think people miss that in their organizations, and the good organizations actually take the time in their new hire orientation or their new employee induction program to not just rush them through it. It's to actually, you know, kind of like an apprenticeship program of build them up over time, the skills and knowledge from a true curriculum that says, we're going to make sure you have the fundamentals, and then we're going to go to some a little bit of advanced topics, and then we're going to get into this expert stuff. It's building that up and having that over time. So often we hire people too late in the game because we want to launch this product tomorrow, so let's hire everybody today, versus we should have hired them a year ago to build them up so that we're able to do this. And I think that time frame has been compressed over and over again. And you asked about that effective training. It really does start from that. What is a new hire experience? Is it rush, get through? Or is it actually, we know that you need to have this base knowledge, the fundamentals of GMP, let's say the fundamentals of cleaning and disinfection, before we get on to these other topics of the application of it, because we need you to have a knowledge base grounded in that science so that you can apply that later on.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned one of the fails, which is hiring too late and trying to rush operators through their training. And I mean, let's be honest, it's hard to find the fails. I mean, the FDA has a whole website where you can search 483s. Just out of curiosity, I went there and I typed in training, and like hundreds of results come back of training deficiencies on 483s. Unfortunately, what we don't hear as much about, and honestly, I wish we would, are the successes. So with nearly a decade under your belt with the PDA, I'm sure you've seen some sites that got it right. So what were they doing that really set them apart in their training programs?
So that one of the biggest things that I wish more companies would employ is coaching programs. And this is really critical in terms of the ongoing learning. So often we assume somebody gets trained and we turn them loose and say, well, you're trained, so you'll never need anything from a learning and development ever again until we revise an SOP, and I can go off on that for a while. But it's really these coaching programs, like kind of the newest thing, and I would say newest thing, but it's been around for a while in terms of companies employing it, are these aseptic operator coaching programs. They're not a punitive program. They're really there to enhance the learning, to say, even for your seasoned employees, what watch outs do we need to look at today? Is our technique still, is there any challenges with our technique? How are the changes of the environment affecting our operation? And I think when you integrate training into your routine operation and you have that coaching, you have the micro learning, those are the things that I would say good organizations in the learning and development space, those are what they employ. They don't always have to have a 3-hour PowerPoint presentation, and frankly, no one wants to sit through that. Most people want to micro learning, 5 minutes on a particular topic. And I think that's what I've seen from great organizations, is their ability to integrate all those learning capabilities and modalities and not overwhelm a system, but use it where appropriate, where you can have a visual aid, you can have something in writing, you can have, I always say we're in the age now of TikTok and YouTube short videos on how to do something. And why isn't the pharmaceutical industry there yet? And we're getting there. And I've seen organizations apply that at point of use. From a learning perspective, how do you, like we said before, how do you expect me to remember a 90-page SOP and every little detail on that 90 pages versus give me a short video to watch and I can be just fine?
So what I'm hearing, David, is that you would like to come on site to the studio and do some training TikToks with me. So I'm going to go ahead and get that jotted down.
I'll put on a gown, I'll dance however I need to do to get the point across.
All right, you guys, you heard that? So let's get David scheduled here in the studio for some TikToks. Perfect. No, I love that, the concept of coaching, right? Because even for, like you said, your most seasoned operators, things change, risks evolve. So kind of keeping them current on what's going on and keeping them educated and aware. And honestly, even if that SOP doesn't change, I mean, I don't know about you, there's times I'm going on autopilot because I've done a task so many times and maybe I'm not doing it, the right way that I learned how to do it the very first time, because like everyone kind of picks up these little nuanced behaviors, right? And so I love that coaching because it's not, like you said, it's not punitive. It's even for those operators that are very skilled and seasoned to just kind of do a reset on best practices. And I think that's amazing. That's a great idea for organizations to kind of implement that. Training, not necessarily for the necessity of training, but to keep people engaged and aware.
Yeah, you're calling out that drift. I call it learning drift, where you learned it and over time you just little things here and there start to change. You do things a little bit differently and you find that over time, you may have drifted quite a bit of, quite a bit of ways away from the original SOP. But over time, over these little increments of time, you wouldn't have noticed those changes. And that's where a coach comes into play for that. And I think, we need to look at other industries and to see how they deal with their training of their employees. And I had the opportunity to be a part of a human performance improvement project where we actually went to other industries and learned, looked at what they were doing. And our training programs were prehistoric compared to what they were doing from an on-the-job training standpoint, and the always continuous improvement mindset. And that goes, when we talk about training, we're not just talking about one aspect of an organization. We are talking about the culture of the organization. We're talking about the mindset of an organization. And if we're just looking at it as a compliance checkbox, you get treated like that as a part of the organization versus an investment.
That getting treated like you're just a checkbox, right? I think that kind of leads into kind of the topic of this webinar, right? How to retain staff, because it's no surprise. There's, in the clean room industry, a lot of organizations often struggle with high turnover, especially for roles like, the cleaning and disinfection staff. So what can sites do to improve their retention rates for these, incredibly critical roles?
So I think one of the biggest things that I go around when I teach people and have these conversations is, one, treat people like adults, because they're going to want to know the why behind what they do. And by knowing the why and not just the mechanics of, wipe it this way or use this solution, it's really, well, we want to know why. We're not kids in all this. We want to know the why behind it, because if you don't tell me the why, I'll fill in that blank. And I'll also apply my own risk to that. I always joke with people about the whole 3-second, 5-second rule, where you drop something on the ground and people start to believe that actually means something. And we build that into, well, that's okay. And because we're not explained the why. So from an organization standpoint, this retention, it is an issue, in my opinion, in the industry, where we have higher turnover than other industries. And it could be that the one thing one of the things that we actually look at from an organization standpoint is its quality culture. And PDA has a tool that we use to measure a company's quality culture. And one of the attributes that we assess is the training program, is staff development. And when we look at, what does a more mature organization do that an immature organization does? And mature organizations, one, set them off on the right foot from everybody goes through new hire orientation. And that gets that, that you as a company saying, we're investing in you. This matters. And then the next thing they do is they don't overwhelm them with the curriculum. And they give them a curriculum that's important for their job and not other ancillary things that they're going to do. And by looking at that, it kind of, what's your first impression when you go to a new organization is you get inducted into that company and the way the company operates. And so with that investment kind of mindset and belief, an employee will go, okay, they care about me. And that's going to be a good feeling for them to want to do a good job in what they're doing. They're going to want to stick with it. And I think having that structured approach to a new employee, or people that are even changing jobs, gives them that foundation of, okay, they care about me and my development, which means down the road, should I get an offer or something else from another company, it's not as attractive as it is now, because I have a skill set. And we can't be afraid to give people a skill set thinking they're going to go out the door with that skill set. A good organization goes, we have the culture, we're going to give you the skill set, we want you to thrive, we want you to improve, we want you to make yourself the best, but we also want you to make our organization the best. And I think you feel that when you walk into an organization that has that. I've worked at some organizations that I felt that, and I've worked at others where I was like, I'm not sure I want to work here. I don't fit to that. I didn't get the feeling of that. And I think that is beyond just the training them. It goes with their company's quality culture, that should be looked at also as a part of that.
Well, David, you fell right into my trap, and you mentioned culture, because that is something that I think, we try and drive home so much that, again, it's beyond the checkbox, it's beyond the training, and it's truly developing a culture, right? And you say quality culture, something that we talk about here is that culture of clean, where there's also this culture developed around contamination control. But I agree, culture is so important. And you get that culture by investing in your team and providing them the resources the way that they need those resources to be provided to them as adults so that they can understand the content. I think you gave some, really fantastic advice that our audience will be able to use to, take back to their sites and really hopefully elevate their training programs. So David, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. But before we go, I can't help but notice up in the corner there that PDA Training and Research Institute. So let me go ahead and give you just a moment here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what PDA offers?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. Yeah, the Training and Research Institute provides hands-on training in a real life environment, real live environment where hands-on do the application of the tasks that are commonly found in the pharmaceutical industry. So we do have a facility located up in Bethesda, Maryland. We have one in Berlin, in Germany, and we have one in India. So globally, we have a footprint to be able to provide this training, but we also do it regionally. So wherever we find a host that has a clean room or a clean space for us to operate in, we provide this training, because it's not only to augment PDA's technical content, but it also is to provide the industry sort of the best practices in what's going on from a training perspective of what knowledge do people need to have. And I always joke with some of our instructors where we talk about, we've been doing training for a really long time, and we say some of the topics that we teach today are the same that we were teaching 20 plus years ago. And I hope to someday that that's not the case, that we're talking all about the advanced stuff. And I want to call out one thing about the culture of clean and I love that concept. When you think about training on cleaning and disinfection, some people think about, mops and wipes and solutions, and that's part of it, but there's also the other contamination control elements that go with it, about clean room behavior, about gowning, about sterilization. Those are all components that somebody in that role needs to know. And so it's not just if you're training for compliance, you would be looking at train on the cleaning and disinfection SOP and call it a day, versus training for an investment would be talk about those other things: microbiology, environmental monitoring, sterilization, aseptic behavior, because that's what's going to be applied to that person in that role. And so we have a wealth of training courses that we provide around the world. We provide it open enrollment. We can come to your company and provide it. My passion is training and getting that in the hands of the people that are making products that change people's lives is important to me. It's a passion for me. So again, thank you for having me be a part of this. Love it, and can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, thanks, David. This is where when we turn this into the YouTube short that David has now, demanded that we do, I think this is where I go like and subscribe. The link is below. So thank you, David. I really, really appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So today we heard from David about the training successes and the good culture he's seen. But what about you? What are your success stories? Or maybe where are you struggling, and where could you use some additional help? We appreciate all of you who have sent in questions, and we'll follow up with you to answer as many as we can. To close out today's show, we've selected a couple of the questions that have come in, but before we get to those, coming up in 1 week, please join us for an office hours edition of Mostly Clean News, where we'll cover the questions we aren't able to get to today. And we'll share the success stories that come in from our viewers so that you can hear about what's working from your peers. The details for office hours are on your screen. Before we get to the questions, I personally want to say thank you so much for having fun with us today. Thanks for letting me approach training from a slightly different angle. Hopefully this was a little bit more engaging than a 90-page SOP. But we know that training is more than just fun and games, so let me get real for a minute and let's answer your questions. One of the questions that we pretty commonly get is how to develop solid contamination control awareness and enhance procedural training. Hopefully you already got some of those tips today, but beyond just making sure that you are explaining the why to your operators, hopefully in a way that truly resonates with them, one of the things that I have seen success with is also including what not to do. Of course, our procedures can list out the appropriate behaviors, the appropriate techniques, and you don't necessarily want to write all of the do not do. So train that. Let your operators know what maybe isn't the appropriate behavior. Early on in the show, we showed some videos of operators not doing the right thing. Sometimes it's important for your operators to see that as well. Another question we've got is talking about how to train staff to be proactive when they're assessing a potential contamination or, an issue that arises. And with that one, I think it's really important to foster that engagement and empowerment in your operators. Again, if they know what the right thing is to do, why they're doing it, they know what the wrong thing is to do, it makes it a lot easier for them to recognize when they do see a potential risk. If you just leave it to what's written on the SOP and you are not giving them a voice and you're not giving them that awareness to speak up when they do see something that maybe doesn't quite align with the expectations, you're going to be losing sight of, that very critical view from in the clean room. So engage your operators and empower them to come to you when they do see risks. And don't punish them if they come to you with a risk that turns out to be nothing. Thank them for speaking up and really, truly living that culture of clean. Another question we've got here is, how do you keep people engaged when you're going over the same information year after year? And that is a fantastic question. So in my previous life, when I was actually in the industry, I've been there. I've sat through the annual, quality refreshers or, the annual gowning requalifications. And you're right, it is hard to be engaged when you're hearing the same information time and time and time again, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but when I see someone giving that same PowerPoint that they gave to me last year and the year before and the year before, I sometimes kind of zone out. Obviously not the right thing to do during training, but it's important not to just recycle the information. It's still really important information to go over when you have these annual trainings, but maybe look at your trends of deviations. Do a highlight on those areas that maybe your operators need to get a little refresher on. And like David talked about, do some micro trainings, right? Instead of just doing, an annual dump all the information on your operators all at once, do some focused trainings where your operators are getting just a little bit at a time so you're not losing their attention. And again, really focusing on those things that matter. Obviously, all of quality matters, all of contamination control matters, but find those areas where maybe that's where the errors are occurring. So you can give those refreshers to your operators in a very timely manner, right? So don't wait just until the end of the year, but really kind of look at doing those micro trainings as these things come up. That is all the time we have today. I would like to say thank you to David for joining us. Thank you so much to Renee and Harry, our team here in the studio, and to the crew behind the scenes. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time on Mostly Clean News.